Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents The Dwarf, The Village, and the RPG Apocalypse. Dwarf Smith from Earth 2 by Constantin Stepp. Narrated by Daniel Thomas May. Chapter 1. Derek Smith sat at the kitchen table looking at his companion's expressions. After hearing about his dream, the three of them looked utterly dumbfounded. Understandable, Derek thought. Even he still had some trouble processing it all.
Within a year after a planet first changes, a special event controlled by the system happens. The Origin Dungeon Trial. As long as you are one of the winners, you will have the chance to give Elle another life as a true spirit.
The Umbrafe Queen Priscilla had told him. 1 year. I'll have to train even harder, Derek thought.
Okay, let me get this straight,
Neri said after a while.
You, Derek, are now the host of the last 9 generations of the Umbrafe Queens. 10, if you count Elle, who's still in there but in a deep sleep. We can give the tear to Creed to heal him of everything, including his curse, and then we would still be able to save Elle if you win the Origin Dungeon Trial and become a true spirit?
That's pretty much it, yeah.
And Elle's mom, the last Umbrafe Queen, wants Elle to live again so that she can continue her mission of restoring their race,
she added as an afterthought, to which Derek nodded. He hadn't mentioned the part about being rescued by Elle's mother. He was still making sense of that. The ogres simply sat there looking at Derek, their mouths agape. Greg's blue mane was in complete disarray, the ogre having woken up in a hurry with Derek's call. Grig didn't look much better. His single eye had soft, dark shadows under it. Neri gave a long sigh, then continued.
This is more complicated than I thought. Derek, how much do you know about the process of becoming a true spirit?
She asked, giving him a sideways look. Not much, Derek said, risking a glance at the twins. But I think the explanation should wait until we have Cree back.
Yes,
Grig said, suddenly jumping from the table, making Derek jump as well. He hadn't seen the ogre this excited since, well, ever.
Let's save Cree!
Derek noticed small tears welling in the ogre's eye. Greg just nodded. Derek could see that despite his attempt to look stoic, with his crossed arms and the glare on his face, his lips were quivering, and he was barely holding back the tears himself.
Then let's go save our Dolphid,
Neri said with a smile. They went to Cree's room where the Dolphid lay in bed, unmoving. His dolphin-like head was slightly tilted to one side, and his blowhole was slowly opening and closing. If it wasn't for that, and his chest softly rising every few moments, he might as well be dead. Derek shivered at the thought. Well, Derek started. No time to waste, then. He grabbed Elswile's tear from his inventory and took one last look at the bright green crystal's description.
Royal Umbrafe Tear of Absolution, Level 19. Legendary. This is the concentrated magic of a Royal Umbrafe. You know its origin, don't you? Effect. This is a one-time use item that, when consumed, immediately restores your health, aura, and mana fully. Additionally, the consumer gains the following effects. 190 years of additional longevity. Recovery from all negative status effects, be it a curse, an illness, or anything else. Permanent 19% increase in XP gained. Both dark and wind affinities increase by 19%. Only 1 tier of absolution can be consumed per individual.
The moment of truth, Derek whispered. He could feel the other exiles leaning forward with expectation. His heart was beating so hard and fast in his chest that he wondered for a second if the others could hear it. With trembling hands, Derek slowly put the tear inside Cree's mouth and gently closed it. He stepped away, not knowing what to expect. The 4 of them held their breath in expectation. A second passed, then another. Derek could barely stand still. Suddenly, Kree's body began to emanate a soft, green glow that enveloped him entirely. It started to grow brighter and brighter, and Derek thought he could see small particles of light coming out of the dolphid's mouth and nostrils, traveling all over his body. It was beautiful. The glow started to fade after a few seconds. Derek and the other exiles leaned forward again with expectation. Slowly but surely, Kree's eyes started to open. But instead of the uncomfortable gray they used to be, they were now a full, shiny black, with no irises.
"My friends,"
Kree said in his whistle-like speech, blinking and looking around.
"I can see you. Am I alive? Is this a dream?"
Derek realized that he had been holding his breath. He let it go with a big sigh, and tears started pouring from his eyes.
No dream, Kree. You're very much alive. Thanks to El.
His voice cracked slightly on the last words, but if the dolphin noticed, he didn't comment on it. Neri started weeping and suddenly jumped on top of the dolphin's bed.
Kree, you're back. It worked,
she wailed amidst the tears.
"Oof! Calm down. I am still sore,"
Kree said, looking surprised at her sudden burst of affection.
"But I am most glad to see you too, my dear Miss Neri. And Mr. Derek, Mr. Gregg and Mr. Grigg,"
the dolphin said gleefully. Kree looked around at them while the goblina climbed down from his bed, still crying. Tears were coming down from his eyes as well now, and he had what Derek thought to be a large smile on his face.
"And to properly see you all, this must be a miracle. What a beautiful day to be alive indeed."
All of them began to cry now, except for Greg. The ogre was still pretending not to care, even if the tears were practically bursting from his single eye. They all came closer to Kree's bed and gathered there, patting him carefully, while Kree looked around in awe, taking in the world around him for the first time in years. There weren't many things in this world that Derek would have traded for the sight of the dolphin's expression.
"You said this miracle was the doing of Her Highness, Mr. Derek, though I do not see her,"
Kree said, wiping his eyes.
"Where is Miss Elsewhile?" "I see,"
Kree said solemnly. Derek had just finished telling him about the fight with the Wrath incarnate, what had happened to Elsewhile, and how they could still save her. They had all moved to the kitchen because, in Kree's words, he had been useless for long enough, thank you. Even when the other four tried to stop him, saying that he needed time to heal, the dolphin denied and simply got up and walked around, showing them that he was fine. Better than fine, in fact. He could see again.
"It appears, Mr. Derek,"
Kree continued,
"that I am once again in your debt, as well as Miss Elsewhile's."
Come on, Kree. Aren't we past that?
Derek moaned, rolling his eyes. Kree shook his head. Without a word, he stood up, circled the table, and kneeled in front of Derek.
"I mean it, Mr. Derek. By now you have saved my life on more occasions than I care to count. Not only that, you and Miss Elsewhile have now cured me of the sins of my past, something that I had given up on many years ago. I understand the graveness of the task ahead of us, and I vow to help to the fullest extent of my abilities and more, if I can. I am, now and forever, wholly in your debt,"
the dolphin said, his head bowed low. Derek simply stared at him. Looking around, unsure, he could see that the rest of the group was as surprised as he was with the dolphin's sudden speech. Even though Kree was usually more formal than the rest of them, it was clear to them that this was something else.
Thank you, Kree,
Derek answered, not knowing what else to say.
We'll save El. I'm sure of it.
Kree looked at him with a strange expression on his face. Derek still had some trouble understanding the dolphin's anatomy, but it looked like a mixture of pride and determination.
"I am sure of it, too. Now I will be of much more help,"
he whistled happily.
"Even if my level has not been restored to what it once was, some of my powers have, Now I can show you how helpful I can truly be.
Derek pondered that for a second.
Cree, if you don't mind me asking, what was your level before you were cursed?
I do not mind, Mr. Derek,
The Dolphin answered.
I was a level 20 silver, mere steps away from becoming gold.
That made all the others stare at him. Neri let out a small gasp, and both of the twins dropped their jaws for the second time.
You were stronger than El?
Derek almost shouted, impressed with the Dolphin.
I do not know that,
Cree said in a thoughtful tone, shaking his head.
My level may have been higher, but from what Her Highness showed of her skills, and from what you told me of the fight against the Wrath Incarnate, I would not be so fast in assuming that I would be able to overpower her, which is why we need to focus all our efforts on bringing her back to us,
He added.
So, about that,
Neri started in her I'm about to lecture you tone.
do any of you know anything about the Origin Dungeon trial?
Derek shook his head. Cree went back to his chair and sat there in silence, looking at her with what could be described as a focused expression. Derek could see that it was hard for him to contain his excitement about being able to see again. The Dolphin's eyes kept wandering around, gazing at whatever caught his attention. Grigg was the one to answer Neri's question.
I know. It's a game where a bunch of people compete against each other to become the true spirits of a newly awakened planet.
Neri nodded.
Yes, but there's more to it than that. The true spirits are the administrators of awakened planets. They are the ones that assign the chosen, and they also control the amount of XP that each individual receives, making sure that the planet itself can recover most of its lost ether. Each awakened planet has 3 of them, regardless of its grade. Once a planet is awakened, the system chooses a random period, usually a couple of months, for the inhabitants to acclimate themselves to the rules. Once that is complete, the process of choosing the true spirits begins. The process varies depending on the grade of the planet. Since Earth is a gamma planet, the most common grade, it should be fairly simple. Still, it's not easy.
Wait, Derek cut in.
What do you mean a couple of months? The Queen said it would be within a year. Yes, a year is the limit of time for the trial to happen, but it could be at any moment. Enigma is probably waiting a bit before announcing when it will be.
Neri answered.
Usually, though, it happens only a few months after the awakening. It harms the planet to spend a long time awakened without true spirits. Now comes the tricky part, she continued. Each Origin Dungeon tile is unique. The system designs a kind of game where the competitors for the true spirit position must compete against one another. It can vary from one trial to the other, but it's usually some kind of hunting game. The problem is, given that Earth is a gamma planet, you would be competing against 1 million people,
She finished, looking Derek dead in the eyes.
Come again?
Derek asked, sure that he must have misheard.
I thought for a second there that you said 1 million people.
Neri nodded.
For the actual trial, to be chosen, you'll need to be among the top people on the planet in terms of level and race. The system chooses half of the contestants based on their battle capabilities, a quarter based on other talents, such as professions, and the other quarter randomly. So, just to have the opportunity to be chosen, you'll have to become one of the top 500,000 people on this planet in your level and race in a couple of months at best. Then it'll come down to luck whether you are chosen or not. If you're chosen, you'll still need to win against all the other contestants in the trial and come out as one of the 3 winners.
But, Derek started, before faltering, shocked. Gathering his composure, he started again.
But that's impossible. How can I win against 1 million people? There were 8 billion people on this planet even before the awakening. Who knows how many more there are now with all the exiles?
Technically, you only have to win against 999,997, to be precise,
Cree added.
Thank you, Cree. That's very helpful.
retorted Derek, forgetting for a second how happy he was to have the Dolphid back.
You are very welcome, Mr. Derek.
The Dolphid answered merrily, not noticing the sarcasm in Derek's voice.
You don't have to worry so much about exiles,
Neri said.
Usually only 1/10 of the participants are exiles. It's to make sure the trial remains balanced.
Even so,
Derek wailed.
That's impossible.
Neri looked at Derek with a serious expression on her face.
Derek, do you want to bring Elle back?
Yes, he said, without hesitation.
Then there's no way around it. We'll have to train harder than ever, you more than anyone, and at one point or another we'll have to leave this dungeon and explore the outside world, which, I'll point out, is full of humans that probably want us dead,
she said, giving Derek a meaningful expression. Derek lowered his eyes.
You don't know that,
he said in a small voice.
And you do?
The Goblina prompted, looking seriously at him.
Is now the time?
Derek asked himself.
Should I tell them?
He looked at her again, and his gaze softened, slowly and gently so the others wouldn't notice. She nodded. Derek took a deep breath, then sighed.
Okay, then. Guys, there's something else I need to.
Dwarf boy!
Greg cut him off. With a suspicious look on his face, he said,
There's an intruder in the dungeon, and he's shouting your name.
Chapter 2.
What did you say?
Derek asked, his voice shaking. Greg locked his eye on Derek's.
I said that there's an intruder, a human intruder in the dungeon, and he's walking around shouting your name like he owns the place. Why is that? I'm sure there's an explanation, big bro,
Grigg said, trying to appease his brother.
There's an explanation, right, Derek?
He added, looking at Derek.
Hang on, a human is walking in the dungeon shouting my name?
Derek asked, barely audible to contain his excitement. Greg stood up suddenly, glaring at Derek.
Answer me, dwarf boy,
Greg shouted.
How does a human know your name?
Calm down, Greg,
Neri shouted, both her and Cree standing up.
There is no need for this, Mr. Greg. This is a day for celebrations, despite everything,
Cree added calmly. The ogre simply glared at them and crossed his arms, then looked at Derek. Derek lifted his hands toward all of them in a calming motion.
Okay, I'll explain. This is exactly what I was about to tell you. Please, sit down.
He tried to make his voice as calm and level as possible. He looked at Neri, and she nodded again, this time with a bit more enthusiasm. He sat down, with Cree promptly following him. Greg remained standing, with Grigg looking at him and then at the dwarf with a worried expression. Derek let out another big sigh, and continued.
Like I was saying, I haven't told you guys everything. I'm sorry, but I lied to you. I thought you wouldn't trust me if you knew this, but it was wrong of me to hide it. I'm not from Camavis. I mean, I don't know where I'm really from. All that I know is that somehow Elle's mother, Priscilla, saved me from being kidnapped when I was a baby. She couldn't explain much more in my dream, only that her power to protect me somehow ended, and she sent me here as a last resort to try and hide me from whatever danger I was in. I was raised by humans my entire life, here on Earth. I didn't even know I was a dwarf until the planet awakened. That's why I don't know anything about the system and the ether and everything else. Why Elle liked me so much, and I think that's why there's a human upstairs shouting my name. He's probably a friend of mine, Andy. I know it's a lot to take in, but I have to go up there to see if he is who I think he is, and if he's safe. Can you guys let him in or something? I promise that we can talk more about it after, and then you can beat me up or whatever.
He looked at the 4 exiles. He had made the entire speech practically in one breath, not knowing if he would be able to continue if he stopped. Now they all sat in silence, staring at him. Neri had a strange look on her face. It was somewhere between admiration and surprise. Cree was, as usual, very hard to read, but he seemed immersed in thought. At least, that's what Derek could make of it. The ogres, however, looked like a truck had hit them dead on. Derek guessed it must have been too much information for their brains to process in one day. Their mouths were comically open, and with their single eyes, their faces almost seemed to form two large number 8s. Derek had to fake a little cough to hold his laughter at the thought.
Wait,
Derek started after a few seconds, sounding confused.
So you're human boy, not dwarf boy?
No, you moron,
Neri replied.
he's a dwarf. He was just raised by humans. Come on, catch up.
I was finding it increasingly strange how you did not seem to know anything about the customs in Kamavis,
Cree said, slowly nodding.
That would explain it rather well.
Look, I'm sorry for hiding all of this,
Derek repeated.
but I have to check out if the human is my friend or not. Can this wait just a little bit?
We're going too,
Greg said, standing up.
I don't like strangers in my dungeon.
Our dungeon, brother,
Greg said in a small voice.
and we can't leave. We still need to stabilize the core.
Greg started to answer, but Neri cut him off.
Don't start a fight, you big brute. Let's just go already.
Yes,
Cree said, also standing up.
let us be on our way. If it is your friend, Mr. Derek, we should not keep them waiting. If it is not, then we have an intruder to deal with.
He shook his fins and even jumped a couple of times as if testing his newly cured body. His excitement was almost palpable. Derek couldn't understand how they took the information so well. He wasn't taking it very well himself.
Thanks, guys. I promise we'll come back to this discussion.
You bet on it, dwarf boy. I'll keep an eye on you,
Greg said, glaring at Derek, who just swallowed and nodded. Maybe not everyone was taking it so well. He didn't want to be on the bad side of the twins. He still remembered how they had almost killed him in just a few hits when he first met them. The brothers went to the ether core, placed their hand on it, closed their eyes for a few seconds, and 2 new messages appeared for Derek.
You have received the minor blessing of the core. For the next 4 hours, all your ether regeneration is 50% faster, and you can ignore the penalties for losing all of your HP or AP. You have received a quest from Greg and Grig, the Glock brothers. Find the intruder, normal, uncommon. Who dares enter our dungeon? Find them and bring them to us, now. Objective: find the puny human that entered uninvited. Intruder found, 0 of 1. Reward: please the almighty lords of the dungeon and don't get squashed like a bug. And some other stuff, if we feel like it. Failure: we'll squash you like a bug. Find them and bring them here in less than 5 hours.
It looked like Greg had given Derek quite the task. He could now feel the general direction of the intruder, just as he could feel his Mjolnir when he lost it, or how he could sense the exiles when Elsewhile told him to find them. The intruder, whoever they were, was on the 1st floor, a few kilometers away from him, and slowly moving.
Now we can watch over you guys,
Grig said merrily. Greg simply glared at Derek.
Can you guys give me the rest of the dungeon map? Elle only gave me the map for the lower levels.
Derek asked, remembering how he didn't have the map for the upper floor.
Sure, here,
Grig said, placing his hand on the core again. Derek checked his map to be sure, and it now showed him the full layout of the dungeon, including the 1st floor. Based on the general direction of the intruder, he shouldn't be that far from the exit, but they were slowly moving further into the dungeon.
Why didn't she give you the whole map?
Neri asked, tilting her head.
Don't know. Guess she didn't want me wandering around near the exit.
Derek answered, still focused on the map.
There is the matter of the Wrath Incarnate as well,
Cree added.
It was on the upper floor before breaking through the ground and killing the broodmother, if I recall correctly. Maybe Her Highness knew that there was a monster too strong for us there and did not want us to take unnecessary risks.
That made Derek look up from the map. He hadn't even thought of that. Neri nodded.
That makes sense.
Can you go already?
Greg blurted angrily.
This puny human walking around is making me angry.
Oh, hang on. I forgot to check on something,
Derek said, remembering how he hadn't seen what had changed since his race awakened. He opened his race tab, not fully knowing what to expect.
Race, Royal Dwarf, awakened. Level 5, 41%. The dwarf race is a humanoid race that prefers to live underground and is mostly found on awakened planets of Gamma and Beta grades. Dwarfs are generally known for their sturdy bodies, outstanding craftsmanship, powerful earth magic, and relatively short statures. Biologically divided into those of common, noble, and royal blood, dwarves live in a strictly hierarchical society. Though you spent most of your life dormant, you are now an awakened Derek Smith. That means your growth potential is even greater than it already was. Hooray! Big grin. Racial talents, dwarf senses, mineral consumption, stone body, earth domain, royal dwarf bloodline. The description has changed a bit, he thought, and I've gained 2 new talents. Earth domain must be the one I used against the Wrath Incarnate. But what's this other one?
Time was limited, so he decided to take a look at his talents as they walked toward the intruder.
Let's go. I'll look at this further while we walk,
he said, leading the Goblina and the Dolphid toward the exit of the hall. Chapter 3. They ran silently for a while as Derek was still trying to process everything that happened. It looked like the other 2 were trying to give him some space, or at least Neri was. Cree was still occupied with his healed sight, making sure to absorb as much information from his surroundings under the light from Neri's floating fire as he could. Derek was thankful for that. A lot had happened in a short time, and he thought that it would take some time for him to digest it. To keep up with the other 2, Derek activated Augmented Sprint. It was easier to run with them, especially Cree, while he had it on. After only a few minutes, he got a notification from the system.
Oh yes, your Augmented Sprint is now level 10, max. You can now upgrade this skill to one of the available options.
That took his mind off of the discussion. He opened his skills tab and was instantly prompted to make a choice. He quickly read through the short descriptions.
Enhanced Sprint, Steel, Common, a basic skill, an increased version of Augmented Sprint with better modifiers, very versatile. Augmented Dash, Steel, Uncommon, a basic skill that allows for a greater increase in speed, but costs more and lasts for a shorter period. Tireless Sprint, Steel, Uncommon, a basic skill that gives a smaller increase in speed, but costs less and lasts longer. Armored Sprint, Steel, Uncommon, a class skill that decreases the burden of running while carrying heavy weapons or wearing heavy armor.
It wasn't a hard choice. Derek was constantly running around carrying his 33-kilogram hammer, and it was definitely a burden. He mentally selected Armored Sprint.
Congratulations, you have upgraded. Augmented Sprint to Armored Sprint. Level 1, 0%.
Derek took the opportunity to look at his racial talents. He had 2 new ones now, and he guessed that the ones he already had would have improved a bit. Opening his Talents tab, though, he was slightly overwhelmed by how much they had changed.
Dwarf Senses, Passive, Dwarves are well adapted to live in underground cities, caves and mines. Very useful ability if you like dark places.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?